Hey everyone, this is Carl again with Tabletop Tango, and I decided today I was going to continue my series on my new campaign, building my new campaign. The last time we talked, I had talked about finding the concept, talking to players about what the concept would be, and trying to understand the broader part of what the campaign will be. So now I need to start getting into the details and start understanding what is really the core of the story, the arc, what have you. Now, there's a lot of advice on YouTube about creating a campaign and what you need to do about it, and folks like How to Be a Great GM, that channel. There's a lot of people who talk about it. So this is just my take on it. So take it as you were and decide whether it's useful or not, but this is what I'm going to do. So if you like what you hear, subscribe, like, it'd be cool. Just see the numbers go up. No fame expected. But so let's talk about creating my new campaign. So I have previously we had the idea that these were going to be awakened gods or gods that are starting to become awakened in a cyberpunk futuristic world. So that's a great concept, but now I need to understand, the who, what, where, why, and that sort of thing. And what I start with is always what's the broader forces at work. As I mentioned before, my players like a story arc. And so behind the scenes, I need to understand the broader picture, the things that are going on. Why are these things the way they are? So why are the gods awakening? So I sit and I think through that. Well, two planes of existence. As I was thinking through it, I was thinking two planes of existence. They collide and then they separate. Sort of like that M-brain theory of science. And the whole idea is that when they collide, these gods have manifest themselves, and that's what really is what the gods were throughout history. Hindu gods and Greek gods, and all these were manifestations of these two things coming together, and then the gods sort of disappear as they go apart. Okay, so that's kind of what's behind the scenes. That means then that implies then there's other gods that are being awoken at the same time as the player characters, and they're not going to be unique. So now we start looking at, well, what's the story arc if we understand that broad background? And you start asking yourself some questions. And those questions include, like, what is it that is the main driving force behind the story? Is it a person? Is it a group? Is it the environment itself? There are campaigns against players versus environments versus players versus the big bad guy. And so in my case, though, it's not really the environment, because it's this future society. It's going to be a person. So there's a someone. And who's that someone going to be? What do they want? So when I was going through it, I was thinking, well, there's the someone would be maybe another awoken god who also wants something. And what does this god want? Well, in this case, they want they want to take over the world. Let's just say, for example, in my case, it's not that. I'm thinking they want to become powerful because they need to avenge something. And so I started walking. Okay, so they want something. When do they need it? Well, probably pretty quickly, to drive the players forward as the adventures I define later start showing the steps this person's taking to get their goal. And so what do they want? Okay, they want to be a powerful force in this world. They want to, they can't. The cyberpunk world is not like ancient, where a god who is, extra powerful could just take over and everybody would just bow down to him. Now we've got technology that could, actually survive against a, would-be god. And so they're going to use their powers to infiltrate and build up their power base and be able to then maybe take over organizations. And so you can see I'm starting to think through, what is the person, what do they kind of want, and then start thinking about how are they going to get there. So we're trying to understand what this person is looking for. So how are they, then the next thing is we start talking about who, we talk about what they want. Now, how are they going to go about getting this? So all the players are gods manifested. So what makes this god special that they'd be able to start driving their agenda into the world? And so what I was thinking is, this is somebody who's got, they're not tough. They're not they're not like a big, strong, burly, I'm going to throw fireballs at you if you don't listen to me and that's worship me or what have you. This person's going to be more around mind control, and are going to use that mind control to, become the corporate, CEO by manipulating people. And then once he's a CEO, he can start doing other things like maybe run for mayor. And once he runs for mayor, he's got some power. And once he has some power, he can start now driving the police to do his bidding, and using his mind control, he can start bringing people to his way of thinking, and then he's going to get broader and broader and broader. So now we got sort of the overall arc, or why. We know what this person is, what they want, why they're doing it. Well, actually, no, we don't know why they're doing it. Why would they be doing it? Because it's so easy just to say he's evil. He wants to do it because evil, and that, maybe when you have an alignment system and it's like this guy's chaotic good, this guy's chaotic evil, this guy's lawful good, but we're talking cyberpunk. It's kind of gray anyway, right? A lot of the players are living outside of the law to be able to make ends meet. So what is this? Why is this person trying to take over the world? What if he had some great injustice done against him? So as I'm thinking about those injustices, I start thinking about then, how does that affect the world? What would be in the world that would cause him a great injustice? And so, well, what's classic cyberpunk trope is, there's the poor and there's the uber rich. There's people who live in the slums and the stacks, and then there's those who kind of are in the high-rise apartments, living the high life, living good. So maybe he comes from the bad part of town. He comes from those tracks. He's been down, trod upon. The system's been against him, and so now he's going to get some payback. And so now we've got our villain. He's looking for payback. He's discovered this talent. He's going to use that to start taking over society to his ends until he is in complete control. Okay, nice. So we talked about kind of the things he wants. Who is it? What do they kind of want? Where are they trying to go with it? What's the whole purpose? And so those are all things that you ask yourself. And, like I said, I'm not trying to say I've got a formula, but I'm trying to work through what this would look like. So I decided it's a person, and I decided that what do they want? Well, they want to be in control of a lot of the part of the world, take over, and basically be the governor, and be in control of everything. Why do they want that? Well, they've had some wrongs done against them, and the only way they can think about is take over and they be the powerful ones, and then from that position of power, they can start affecting those who trod upon them. Now, what's kind of cool, though, is by thinking through this, why are they doing it, and not just thinking, oh, they're just evil, and evil people do evil things. I can start giving them a motivation, which is not that foreign to the player characters. If I build stories around this person, it may not be black and white. They may be sympathizing with the villain, saying, oh, I get why, if it comes out in the storyline, they get why he or she is doing that. They understand why it's important to them. And maybe that then drives the players to take an approach that isn't as black and white. Let's go kill the bad guy. And maybe we have to thwart them, but killing them is not the right answer. Or we have to, right that wrong for them so that they no longer have that desire to take over the world. So that's pretty cool. So I got my concept. The concepts led me to kind of thinking what the antagonists might be and why they might be and what they're looking for. And so now that I have that piece of it, you start looking at least I start looking at, so that's cool, right? Everybody can have a great idea. And so I start thinking about, well, does that idea now translate into things that drive the players to take action? So adventures. Does that lead to adventures? So it's easy to, I'm writing a book and the book has this person, mind controlling people, taking over the world. That's great. But if there's not elements that the players can inject themselves into that storyline to stop, to thwart, to sympathize and work with them, it's a problem. So while I'm building out this campaign concept and sort of the overall arc, I start peppering a couple stories in, and these are bulleted out. These are not fully fleshed adventures. They are really just bulleted out a little bit um, to build a framework so I can say, yes, there's an adventure there. So, for example, in this, what would be something that the players could be doing initially that starts introducing them to this, that there's something else going on in the world that's unique? As I mentioned in the first video, the players they wanted to come to their power. And so we have a couple of adventures that we're going to be doing before the players ever recognize that they're powerful god type creatures and build their and get their powers and build the new characters that are based on the Superpowers companion book in the Savage World setting. Or Savage World game system. So, well, okay. So what do I do? There needs to be a reason why the players would engage with this person, and so this person's starting to build out a desire to first thing is start mind controlling, taking over companies, doing things. What if he needs some artifact or something from these previous, where these things previously hit? And that allows him to sort of amplify his power, and he's kind of discovered that maybe he was a brainiac, and now he's mind control god. Maybe he was a brainiac, he understood these things, or he had some background, and he's trying to pull these things together. Players over here are being asked by some fixer to go steal something. Now maybe they're stealing it for him, and that's when they'll come across as the boss actually turns out to be the bad guy. Or maybe they're stealing it for a collector, and then the collector later he's stolen from, and the players realize there was some reason why this collector wanted everything. And then, okay, so there's an adventure path, there's some ideas there, kind of get it. Now as he takes over companies and he starts building out his what's the term, his empire by mind controlling, you can start, can I start peppering things in where, some corporate goon got forced out of his job and he thinks there's something at play, and he's going to hire the players to go in and steal documents or hack the system, and then the players learn something that way. Okay, well, maybe not great yet, but at least it makes sense that'd be another way to cross paths. But the whole point of this exercise is to make it so I have a couple of venture ideas that maybe aren't fully fleshed out, but they're enough to say it'll work. Because it really sucks to have a really great concept and it's a cool campaign, but there's nothing to call you to action. There's nothing to do in the world. You need to have a world that can have action take place in it, and the players can drive change or stop change from happening if that's what you want. So we've got a bad guy. We know what he's trying to do. We understand the world and these things. That's a mystery too that can add to the players. Is like, why do they have powers, and why are all these, maybe there's creatures from history or from legend, like did they run into a Medusa? Yeah, I want to use that. I'm going to use Medusa for one of the adventures when they're grabbing one of these pieces of artwork. The Medusa is going to be there, and that's going to immediately tell them. So I got some action right there, right up very early in the gameplay. Awesome, we're going to use a Medusa. And so we start having those come out and appear. And then that's a mystery. And now maybe this art collector that's part of the early adventures I'm talking about, maybe he becomes an NPC and he knows something, and he can start teaching them, and they start understanding that what's going on and maybe the history and why, and then that drives that there's others out there. And then while we're doing that, we can feed in some of these stories about this guy who's trying to take over the take over these companies, take over the police. Well, then suddenly once he's got the police, he knows that he needs to crack down on certain things. Well, then that's going to go against maybe the party's interest. I had originally thought that he would crack down on the slums, right? And so now the players are from the slums, and that would get them mad, and but that doesn't make sense, right? Because my story for him is they came from the slums, and it's going to take retribution or on those who treated them poorly. So now maybe for that to work, he'd have to maybe hate so much where he came from, and he decides that that's what he's going to do. But so it's not all worked out. So So this, to cut this series a little, this part of the series a little short, I took this concept of the players becoming gods and I said, well, there has to be an arc. Players wanted an arc. There has to be something that's happening in the world that they can interact with. And so I thought of this antagonist who's trying to sort of run everything, and he's going to do it through his powers of mind control. And he's going to, the kind of the steps to get there is take over a company, take over the police, take over the city, maybe then take over the world if the campaign continues that long. And at every step of the way, we have to find ways for the players to interact with that. I'll be honest, this is a little light. Usually I'd like to come in with a good 4 or 5 story ideas that I can just go, yeah, it makes sense. It totally makes sense how this would all work in. I only got 2 or 3 right now, but the players really want to do this, so I'll figure it out. So we'll figure out how to do it. But that's kind of where we're at. So we've got our basic arc concept, and we did it by thinking about kind of what they're thinking, why they're trying to do it, what's their motivation behind it, how does that now link into the overall world and the things that are going on in the background of the world. And you can obviously layer things in. This is just the main arc, but it's still a cyberpunk world. The players could be using their powers to do their own thing, driving their own change in the world, and at some point they butt heads with this other person who's trying to force their will on it. So there's a lot of adventuring ideas just because I haven't thought of them all. So that's the thought process I go through. What's this overall world? Again, I'm beating a dead horse, but what's the overall world and the idea? What's that arc look like from the standpoint of an antagonist or something the players are going to interact with, and what are they trying to accomplish, and why are they trying to accomplish it? What's the purpose behind that? And what are the steps they're taking? Then are there adventure ideas that are immediately obvious that show how the players can interact with that? Those are all really important things. And so now I have basically the beginning. I'm ready to run something. So now I got to do assets. I got to get things set up. I got all those sorts of things. But, the bottom line is I got something. I can immediately start running the adventure where the players are stealing artifacts to bring to a collector, and I can do multiple adventures there where I give them artifacts from different cultures, and they're coming, and when they finally come together, that's when the players learn something. So I got some stuff. I'm ready to go. I guess what this shows is you don't have to have everything like super planned to the nth detail to have your concept ready to rock and roll. Sometimes you just got to do a leap of faith, get in there, run some games, see what directions players take you, look at what their backstories are, and that'll always help drive. Because the bad guy I'm thinking of may be completely different once I find out that they're, going down the rabbit hole that, this one corporation is evil and is, creating superhero or creating gods through some mechanism. I don't know how they found that out or what got in their brain, but why not? I don't know. We have to follow that up. So anyway, those are some of my thoughts. Like I said, it's more kind of a conversation between what I was thinking in my head. And so if you like it and it was at least entertaining, go ahead and subscribe, that'd be cool. And we'll do maybe another one on some of the adventures, how they look, maybe. I definitely want to do one on how I I'm going to Foundry, get Foundry set up for Savage Worlds, because that's going to be, I'm used to doing it on Roll20, so we'll have fun doing that. But anyway, those are upcoming. So again, my name's Carl Davis. I'm with Tabletop Tango, and I appreciate you watching, and hopefully this was useful, even if it was just something that you say, hey, here's how someone else's brain is working. Talk to you later. Thanks.